Hey everybody, so it is the most exciting time of the year. It's Coho Salmon fishing season here in BC. So from early September until mid-November, we have a pretty good return of Coho Salmon here into various tributaries of the lower Fraser River. And I find them very exciting to catch. They're very acrobatic when you hook them. The bites can be pretty aggressive, but at times they also can turn off quite easily. So, sometimes they don't bite as well, other times they bite very well. And that's what keeps bringing me back every year again and again, because they're just so unpredictable. I find them very exciting. And they're also very tasty. So I love to cold smoke them. I love to make gravlax with them. We love to grill them at home, make miso soup with the carcasses. So it's a very versatile species that every family member in this household enjoys. I've done quite a few videos on this already, but I want to do another videos on the setups for Coho Salmon, because every year I make a little adjustments, little additions to improve my setups, which would translate to, well, hopefully better catch results, and I like to share those with you. So over the last 20 years, my setups have evolved, and I find that they've just gotten better and better every year. Like I say, Coho Salmon can be very tough to catch as well. You don't get many chances when you get out there. So you want to give yourself the best results, give yourself the best chances when you get out there by having good setups that won't fail on you. Quite often people ask me, so what is the easiest way to catch Coho Salmon? Well, my answer is spinning. So casting and retrieving lures is probably the easiest way to catch salmon. Coho salmon love to follow lures. They're very easy to trigger if you cast something in front of them and just dragging along the bottom. And they love to follow it, and they love to attack it. They're very territorial when they come into rivers. So spinning, having a spinning setup, just casting, retrieving lures, spoons and spinners, is probably the easiest way to get started. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about spinning setups for Coho salmon. Let's start with the rods. So for spinning rods, I tend to go with anywhere from a 8.5 feet long rod to 9.5 feet long. So here I got three different lengths. So we got 8.5, 9 feet, and 9.5. Well, so what are the differences? My personal preference is a 9-foot long rod. It also depends on your height as well. So the taller you are, the longer the rods you can use that wouldn't affect you that much. But for someone like myself who's really short, well, I'm 5'5", a shorter rod would be better. So here we have a 8.5 feet long Shimano Claris. So this particular rod is rated between 8 and 12 pound test. I would say this is the workhorse out of all the three rods that I have. And this is the one that I recommend you to get if you're just starting out. So 8 to 12 pound test, it can cover a variety of species, not just Coho salmon. You can use this for Chinook salmon, use this for steelhead. It's very nice. Because it's a little shorter, 8.5 feet, you can also use it for twitching jigs if you want. Ideally, a little shorter, like 6 to 7 feet long is better. But if you can't afford another rod, you can also use this for twitching. This 9.5 feet long Shimano Claris as well is also rated 8 to 12 pound test. So they both have the same specs, except the only difference is the length of the rod. So this one, the extra 1 foot gives you the advantage of if you need to keep your main line out of the water, it's easier to pick it up. And I find this particular rod is better for swinging spoons than the 8.5 feet long, which is good for twitching, good for casting and retrieving spoons. So yeah, so two different lengths to choose from, but my advice is to go with the 8.5. This is the one if you want to, get the most out of your money. 8.5 feet long will get you started right away. My favorite rod though is this rod right here. So this is the G.Loomis E6X spinning rod. It's rated between 6 and 10 pound test. So slightly lighter than the other two, and it is extremely light, extremely sensitive, yet it's very, very strong as well. This bottom section of the rod is very, it's a lot stiffer, a lot faster than the top section. So even though the tip is really sensitive, it has a pretty flexible top section. The bottom section has a pretty strong backbone that can handle pretty big fish. I loved this rod last year when I was fishing with Coho Salmon, and it was just so nice to use. But it also costs money. So this particular rod costs double of this Shimano Claris right here. So if you're just starting out, unless you have a pretty big budget, I would go with this one first. And if you really get into this a lot, then you can consider treating yourself with something like a G.Loomis E6X rod as well. So yeah, so you do get what you pay for. You're paying for you're paying for, I guess, quality. You're paying for experience. So that particular rod, it's a lot nicer to use, a lot easier on your arms because it's lighter, and a lot more fun to fight a fish with as well. But if you want something that's quite beefy and quite does the job anytime, this Shimano Claris, there's nothing wrong with that. It definitely, and it's also pretty sensitive as well. There's nothing wrong with it. I shouldn't say that one's more sensitive. It is more sensitive, but this one is also pretty sensitive as well. It has a pretty sensitive tip, pretty fast reacting tip. You definitely will hook a lot of fish with this rod. So let's talk about reels. If you're just starting out with coho salmon fishing and you don't want to spend a whole lot of money on reels, well, first of all, for spinning reels, you do want to invest a little bit on it because you do get what you pay for, like I said, and you want to get something that's reliable, that's durable. And spinning reels, because there's a lot of contact with water, there's a lot of gear involved, cheaper reels will break down quite easily as well. So what are your choices? Do you rather pay not much for a reel that will replace every season, or do you want to invest on something a little more expensive that will last you for a long time, or do you want to pay something that's fairly reasonable and that can still last quite a bit as well? So this Shimano Nasky 2500 is the one I recommend for anyone who's getting into salmon fishing. I've had this particular one for since 2017 now. Hold on. Yeah, March 2017, that's when I got this reel. So it's been 5 years, and this is kind of my backup reel because I do have a couple other better models that I want to show you. But this one, I do use it from time to time. I lend it to my dad, I lend it to other friends as well. And so far, it's still smooth as butter. It works really well. And if you take care of it, after every trip or every few trips, just kind of wipe it down and grease it, this will last for a very, very long time. So like I say, it's already been 5 seasons on this reel, and it's fantastic. So this particular reel, it's not a cheap reel. It's more in the $100 to $150 range, but like I say, it's very durable. Next one up, which is the one that I've been using a lot in the last 2 years, is this Shimano Stratic 2500 HG. So this one is my workhorse. It's so nice. We use it for spinning for coho, we use it for pink salmon, we use it for jigging for Chinook salmon in the ocean. And this is a fantastic reel. It just does not break down. And again, you do get what you pay for. This one costs twice as much as the Shimano Nasky, but it's so nice. Look how smooth it is. It's got a good seal on it. So it's good for saltwater as well. You can use it for beach fishing for coho salmon if you want to, but you're looking for smoothness. So when you're casting, retrieving spoons, when you're retrieving that spoon, the spinner, you want precision, you want smoothness. So having a really nice smooth spinning reel can really make a huge difference on the performance of your lure, on how often you will get a bite as well. And when you do find a nice fish, you want something that's reliable that wouldn't break down. So this is the one to go with if you want to invest a little bit more on it. Something new this year I've spent on is the Shimano Vanford 2500. This reel is so awesome. So you're paying for luxury now. Going from the Stratic to the Vanford, they have very similar specs. It's pretty much the same. The spool capacity is very similar, but this reel here, the Vanford, is so light. It's so light. The Stratic is already pretty light, but this is even lighter. It just feels like a feather in your hand. It's again, it's super smooth as well, and this definitely costs. But again, you're paying for luxury. I'm looking forward to using this. This one is a lot more delicate, I find. If you're looking for an even smoother reel, this is the way they want to go with. And but if you're looking for just getting out and you're gonna putting a lot of mileage on your rods and reels, I think, well, I like, here we go. So the Nasky, it's a good entry-level one to go with the 8.5 feet long Shimano Claris. This is a good setup for entry-level, and this will last you forever. If you take good care of it, it's good. Going a little higher up, so the Stratic, this will last you even longer with minimal maintenance. Go with the, again, the Shimano Claris 8 to 12 pound test, 8.5 feet, or the 9.5 feet long spinning rod. But if you're looking for comfort, if you're looking for smoothness, this G.Loomis setup, the E6X, 9 feet long, rated 6 to 10 pound test, to go with this Shimano Vanford 2500. This setup is so light, and yet it is so strong. It can handle all the Coho salmon you catch, and just makes the experience really, really enjoyable. And if you want to treat yourself, like I said, I highly recommend it. So let's talk about the main line that I like to use on my spinning reels for Coho salmon. About 10 years ago, or more than over 10 years ago, what I like to use on my spinning reels is actually monofilament line. So I would put 8 pound test, 10 pound test, mono just directly onto this spool, and it worked fine. I was catching fish, but I was also losing a lot of fish. So monofilament stretches a lot. So I was finding that my hook sets were not, I guess, hard enough, because when you set that hook, if the line stretched a little bit, there's a little bit of play on the hook as well, and you end up losing a few fish. About 8 years ago, I decided to convert myself by switching the mono on my spinning reel to braided line. So what I have been using instead, the mono, is this. So this is Pro Braided 15 pound test, and ever since I started using this, I haven't used anything else. It is fantastic. So 15 pound test has the diameter of 4 pound test monofilament, so it's very, very thin, yet it's very, very strong. So the good thing about braided line is that it does not stretch. This Pro line just doesn't stretch, and so what that translates into is sensitivity on your rod. So if it doesn't stretch when you get a bite, and you can feel every single tap on that rod tip, especially if you're using something like a G.Loomis E6X rod. It's just so sensitive. Your sensitivity improves so much when you switch to going into a very sensitive rod, and also going from monofilament to braided line. So the way to put this braided line onto your reel is that I like to put a little bit of mono line on the bottom. Then I will put the Pro braided line on top of that to spool it up. The reason being so that you want to prevent the line digging down too much or having any play. So just having that bit of mono on the bottom will make sure this braided line will settle on the spool quite nicely, that it wouldn't move. I've actually seen braided line when not spooled on properly, that it actually shifts around in the spool itself too a lot, and that's not what you want at all. So at the end of the braided line, you don't tie that lure directly onto it. So what you want to do is you want to get this right here. So this is Seaguar Fluorocarbon 15-pound test. I mean, I guess you could put some monofilament leader at the end of the braided mainline as well, but fluorocarbon also makes all the difference. This doesn't stretch, and it's also a little thinner than monofilament line. So again, it improves your sensitivity a lot. You feel a lot more bites, and you do hook a lot more fish with this. Some say so fluorocarbon doesn't reflect light as much, so it's less visible in water. So maybe the fish wouldn't see the line as much, and that's how you'll translate into more bites as well. I choose 15-pound test because over the last 8 years I have experimented with many different test lines. So I started with 8-pound test fluorocarbon. What I found was that connecting the 8-pound test fluorocarbon to this 15 pounds test braided mainline, it was snapping quite often. Just from the repetition of casting and retrieving, I think over time there's a little wearing on that knot. So 8-pound test fluorocarbon is pretty thin. I don't recommend you doing that. So what I recommend you do is get yourself 15-pound test or at least 12-pound test Seaguar fluorocarbon and tie it to the braided line. But 15-pound definitely guarantees you that it wouldn't break, but you do want to check that knot every hour or so just to make sure it's fine. I won't go into the details on the knot that I use to tie between the braided line, main line to the fluorocarbon leader. I use improved Albright. There's many different knots you can use. You can use loop to loop, but improved Albright is one that I found that has worked really well for me, and you can look that up. There's lots of knot tying videos that they do a much better job than I can do, so I would recommend you go check it out on YouTube for that. So how much leader would you use? I would pull maybe 2, so you do 1 and 2 arm lengths. That's smaller enough. So anywhere from 4 to 8 feet is what I recommend you put at the end of this braided line. So some might say, well, why don't you just tie the spoon directly to the braided line? Well, it's just this is visible, so you don't want the fish to see this line. So that's why we use this less visible fluorocarbon line tied onto it before we tie onto the lures. This year, I'm going to be working with Prime Lures, which is a local company here in Vancouver. Funny story with Prime Lures, I've actually known the owner for about 20 years now. Back about 20 years ago, I used to make a lot of lures myself, and I used to sell a lot of lures to the owner of Prime Lures, and it's just funny how things has gone now. He now owns a pretty successful lure company, and we decided we're gonna work together. I really like these spoons, so I'm excited to try them out. So they're a little broader than some of the other spoons I've used in the past, and a little thinner. So this particular spoon is it weighs 5/8 ounce, so slightly more than the 1/4 ounce which I usually use. Even though it's a little heavier, my suspicion is that this is not gonna sink faster just because it's a little broader, it's a little thinner, and so that water resistance will make it flutter really nicely on the way down. So I'm really looking forward to using this. Spoons and spinners is what we use to entice coho salmon, because what these does is they imitate little fish, little minnows like pike minnows, little trout in the water that are trying to feed on coho salmon eggs once they start spawning. So the coho salmon, in the territorial mode, they get into that attack mode, right? So when they see a spoon like that swimming around, they'll want to chase it down and trying to bite onto it. They're not doing that due to hunger, but it's entirely due to territorial behaviors, trying to get rid of any little fish around them so they can improve the survival of their eggs. So prime spoons. So we got different colors. My favorite colors is this right here. So the orange stripe with brass body with orange stripe. This is all hammered. It's really nice. Pink with silver is pretty nice as well. I also like chartreuse. Chartreuse, a lot of times when pink and orange don't work, and chartreuse can work pretty well. I really enjoy using these three patterns. Other ones we got, it's copper with orange stripe. We got blue. So okay, here's the thing with blue. So I've never actually had much success with blue, but I know many other people have. So a lot of times when you start having success a lot with one particular pattern, so for me is this orange stripe with brass body, you tend to spend a lot more time on it. So over and over again, you keep catching fish and you start thinking, well, that is a really effective spoon. But in reality, I'm not spending a whole lot of time on using a blue color spoon, which apparently works really well for other people. But maybe I should, just start kind of expanding my selection here. So yeah, so chartreuse, orange, pink, blue. So these are all fantastic colors. If you go to primelewis.com, you can see there's about 20 different patterns you can get. And most of these patterns can available in all of your local tackle stores here in Vancouver, in the Fraser Valley, and also on Vancouver Island as well. So go check it out. I'm excited to be using this in the next 2 months, and stay tuned for upcoming episodes where I'll be fishing with them, and hopefully we'll be catching coho salmon with these as well. Prime Lewis also make spinners as well. So spinners work very similar to spoons. Spoons, the way I like to fish them is you cast them out, and sometimes you just strictly retrieve the spoon back so it swims like that. Well, sometimes you want to twist that rod once in a while, so you make that spoon go up and down or flutter around a little bit. With spinners, it's a direct retrieve. You don't do anything with it. So you basically cast this spinner out and you just give it a twitch, get that blade spinning, and just reel. You don't do anything else. It's so what you want to do is you want this spinner body to travel back towards you, and with the blade constantly rotating as it comes back. So yeah, so spinners. The spinners come in two different sizes. They come in size 4 blades, which is this one right here, and size 5 blades, which is this one right here. Bigger blades tends to create more resistance on your line, and but it also has a bigger presentation in the water as well. Creates more vibration. Vibration is what attracts these coho salmon to attack your lure. So perhaps in dirtier water where the fish can't see as well, you want to go with a bigger blade than a smaller blade. So yeah, so these are pink body with silver blade. And there's also like copper blade with orange body, straight copper body and blade as well. What really impresses me about these prime lures is that they come with excellent hooks. So these are Mustad Ultra Point, I guess, spoon hooks. It's super sharp. That's my first impression. Well, I haven't fished with them yet, but my first impression is that they're very, very sharp. And what's more important is that they have a very thick shank, which means the spoon wouldn't bend very much, wouldn't flex very much. Quite often, a lot of lures, the lures that you get in the package comes with hooks that just, bad quality hooks, and you have to switch them over. But I really enjoy well, I think I'm gonna enjoy using these hooks as well. Another hook that I really enjoy using is these VMC. I've talked about this last year already. So the VMC Texhead Sidewatch Open Night hooks. So these are good lure replacement hooks. So this is a size 1/0 hook. It has an open eye, which means that you have to use a pair of pliers to close up that gap, so it doesn't, you don't end up losing the hook when on the lure. This is also an extremely sharp hook. We started using these last year, and they definitely yielded some very good results as well. Again, very thick shank. That the hook doesn't bend very much at all. That's what you want. The last thing you want is when you're playing a fish, this hook started flexing, and that's how the fish will pop off. You definitely don't want that. So, and lots of package lures come with hooks will do that. So I would just warn you to be careful with that. With prime spoons, prime lures, they come with very, very nice hooks. And that's these retails for $5 each. And just the hook itself is already $1, so you're getting a pretty good return on what you're paying for here. So the last thing I want to talk about doesn't necessarily will make you catch more fish, but will definitely make you land more fish, which is a Moby salmon net. So this is a catch and release net that you want to get, and it will totally help you land more fish by cutting down your fight time. So anyone who has fished for coho before would know that when you hook a coho, they run around, they thrash, they roll, they jump, and they will do everything possible trying to shake that hook out of their mouth. And you want to get that fish in as quickly as you can. By doing that, a net will really help. Because a lot of times as the fish gets closer to the shallow water, as soon as they start feeling the bottom of the river, they panic even more, and that tends to be the time when you start losing fish. So by having a net where you can go out a little bit and just scoop the fish up, I find myself losing way less fish by carrying this net around with me all the time. If you see me out there at the river, I always have this net on my backpack, and it really, really helps. The Moby net is a wooden net, and this net, when you drop in the water, unlike other manufactured nets, this one will float on top of the water, so you can, if you do catch a wild coho salmon, which you have to release, you can set this down on top of the water and use both hands to pick up the fish nicely in the water, so you don't damage it to release it. It's really handy. So yeah, so I'll recommend you get yourself a Moby net, and they're light, they're super nice, and just a good quality local product made in BC. So there you have it. That's my improved coho salmon setup, and I hope that kind of will cut down some of the learning curve for you as well. I know it is difficult to get into salmon fishing a lot of times, and that's why I try to help you guys to. I go out and test the products and find out what works good, what's good within your budget, and yeah. So definitely go out and support your local tackle store. Go out there and get these products, and I hope to see you out there catching lots of coho salmon. And if you enjoyed this video, if you found this helpful, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your support, and let me know what else you do maybe differently than this that might be better, because I definitely don't know everything. I would love to hear your feedbacks by leaving a comment on the bottom, and I'm always happy to hear from you. And until next time, good luck fishing.